Li Tay pushed his mop bucket down the empty hallway of New Seoul Space Station. The clock showed 2:30 a.m., and the diplomatic wing was completely silent. He liked working the night shift because nobody bothered him, and he could clean in peace. The station housed ambassadors from dozens of alien worlds. During the day, these halls buzzed with important meetings and fancy ceremonies. But at night, it was just Li Tay and his cleaning supplies. He had been working here for 3 years. The pay was decent, and he took pride in keeping everything spotless. His mom always said honest work was nothing to be ashamed of, and Li Tay believed her. As he mopped near the restricted diplomatic quarters, he heard a strange sound, like someone gasping for air. Li Tay stopped and listened carefully. There it was again. He shouldn't go into the restricted area. His supervisor Kim Bo had made that very clear, but someone might be in trouble. Li Tay left his mop and walked toward the sound. Behind a marble pillar, he found a young woman lying on the floor. She wasn't human. Her skin had a slight blue tint, and her ears were pointed. She wore expensive robes covered in jewels. This had to be someone very important. The woman's breathing was shallow and quick. Her lips were turning purple. Li Tay had seen this before when his neighbor got food. Poisoning. Someone had been poisoned. He knelt beside her and checked her pulse. Very weak. Her eyes opened slightly, showing panic and fear. She tried to speak, but only made choking sounds. Li Tay's mind raced. He couldn't call security right away because they would ask too many questions. By the time they arrived and figured out what to do, she might be dead. He had to act now. He remembered his first aid training from military service. For most poisons, you needed to neutralize them quickly. Li Tay looked at his cleaning cart. He had hydrogen peroxide, activated charcoal tablets for the water filters, and other chemicals. The woman's condition was getting worse. Her breathing became more labored. Li Tay made a decision that could save her life or get him fired. He mixed a small amount of activated charcoal with clean water from his bottle. Charcoal could absorb many types of poison. He gently lifted her head and helped her drink the mixture. Next, he used his emergency communicator to call the medical bay, but he said he found her outside the restricted area. The lie might protect both of them. Within minutes, her breathing improved slightly. The purple color in her lips started to fade. She opened her eyes fully and looked directly at Li Tay. When the medical team arrived, they were amazed she was conscious. They quickly took her to the hospital wing. As they loaded her onto the stretcher, she grabbed Li Tay's hand. In perfect Korean, she whispered, "You saved my life. By the ancient laws of my people, you are now my sworn protector. I am Princess Hana of the Keth Empire." Li Tay stared in shock. He had just saved an alien princess. And apparently, that meant something very serious in her culture. The medical team rushed her away, leaving Li Tay alone with his mop bucket and a dozen questions. His simple night shift had just become very complicated. He finished cleaning the hallway, but his hands were shaking. Tomorrow, everything would change. He just didn't know how much. The next evening, Li Tay arrived for his shift, expecting everything to be normal. He was wrong. Princess Hana stood waiting by his cleaning cart, wearing simple clothes instead of her royal robes. "What are you doing here?" Li Tay asked, looking around nervously. "Shouldn't you be in the medical wing?" "I'm completely healed," she said with a smile, "and according to Keth law, I must stay close to my protector until the debt is properly honored." Li Tay sighed. This was going to be a long night. As he started mopping the floors, Princess Hana walked beside him, asking endless questions. "Why do you clean the same spots every day? Don't they stay clean? People walk on them, they get dirty again," Li Tay explained patiently. "That's how it works." She watched him scrub a stubborn stain for 5 minutes. "You could just leave. No one would notice." "I would notice," Li Tay said. "My job is to keep this place clean. If I don't do it right, what's the point?" Princess Hana tilted her head, genuinely puzzled. In her world, servants did the work while royalty gave orders. She had never seen someone take such pride in simple tasks. "Tell me about your family," she said as Li Tay emptied trash bins. "My mom works in a factory. My dad died when I was young. She raised me alone and taught me that honest work is honorable work." Li Tay dumped another bin. What about your family? Princess Hana's expression darkened. My father is the emperor. My mother died in a political assassination when I was 12. Court life is dangerous. Everyone smiles at you while planning to stab you in the back. Li Tay stopped working and looked at her. That sounds terrible. It is. That's why I was poisoned yesterday. Some nobles want to stop my upcoming marriage because it threatens their power. She sat on a bench looking tired. They'd rather kill me than lose influence. You're getting married? Li Tay asked, though he wasn't sure why that bothered him. Against my will, to General Wu of the Northern Territories. He's cruel and violent, but the marriage will unite our kingdoms. Princess Hana's voice became quiet. I've never had a choice in anything. Every decision is made for me. Li Tay continued cleaning while thinking about her words. His life was simple, but it was his own. He could choose his job, his friends, his future. Princess Hana had wealth and power, but no freedom. Why don't you just say no, he asked. She laughed bitterly. If I refuse, it could start a war. Thousands of innocent people would die because I was selfish. They worked in comfortable silence for a while. Princess Hana even helped him organize supplies, something that would have shocked her royal court. You're different from other humans I've met, she said suddenly. The diplomats and politicians all want something from me. You just treat me like a normal person. You are a normal person, Li Tay replied. You just happen to have a fancy title. Princess Hana smiled for the first time since he'd met her. In my world, people are measured by their bloodline and wealth, but you're measured by your character and work. I think I prefer the human way. As dawn approached, Li Tay realized something had changed. This alien princess wasn't just his responsibility anymore. She was becoming his friend, and that scared him more than any political intrigue ever could. Kim Bo stormed into the break room. The next morning, his face red with anger. Li Tay, what do you think you're doing? Li Tay looked up from his lunch, confused. Eating rice? Don't play dumb with me. Security cameras show you wandering around the diplomatic wing with that alien princess. You're a janitor, not a tour. Guide! Before Li Tay could explain, Princess Hana appeared in the doorway. She had changed back into her royal robes and looked every inch the powerful ruler she was. Is there a problem here? She asked calmly. Kim Bo's attitude instantly shifted. He bowed awkwardly. Your Highness, I was just explaining to Li Tay that he needs to focus on his cleaning duties. Actually, Princess Hana said, I'm appointing Li Tay as my official cultural advisor. He will help me understand human customs and business practices. Kim Bo's mouth fell open. But he's just a janitor. He's also the man who saved my life. I trust his judgment completely. Princess Hana's tone left no room for argument. I assume the station management won't object to this arrangement? Kim Bo nodded quickly, knowing he couldn't argue with alien royalty. After he left, Li Tay stared at Princess Hana in shock. Cultural advisor. I don't know anything about diplomacy. That's exactly why you're perfect for the job, she said with a smile. 2 hours later, Li Tay found himself sitting in the main conference room wearing his best shirt. Around the table sat ambassadors from 5 different worlds, arguing about mining rights in the Outer Rim. The Zephyrian ambassador slammed his tentacle on the table. These terms are insulting. We demand 60% of all profits. The human representative shook his head. Absolutely not. 30% is our final offer. The argument continued for 20 minutes while Li Tay listened quietly. Finally, Princess Hana nudged him. What do you think? All eyes turned to Li Tay. He felt like a deer caught in headlights. Well, this is like when my apartment. Building needed new plumbing. The ambassadors looked confused. Li Tay continued nervously. See, the landlord didn't want to pay for it, and the residents couldn't afford it either, so they agreed to split the cost, but the landlord got to keep the old pipes to sell for scrap metal. Everyone got something. The Zephyrian ambassador's eyes lit up. You mean we could keep the extracted rare minerals that humans can't use? And we keep the standard metals that are worthless to your people, the human diplomat added excitedly. Within an hour they had reached an agreement that satisfied everyone. Li Tay had accidentally solved a dispute that had been going on for months. The pattern repeated over the next few days. While diplomats spoke in circles and made veiled threats, Li Te offered simple, practical solutions. He compared trade routes to bus schedules and treaty negotiations to apartment lease agreements. Princess Hana watched him with growing admiration. In her world, people spoke in riddles and hidden meanings. Li Te said exactly what he meant, and somehow that cut through all the political nonsense. During a break between meetings, she found him on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. "You're incredible," she said softly. "Do you know that?" Li Te laughed. "I'm just saying what makes sense. These problems aren't that complicated when you think about them like normal life. That's what makes you special. Everyone else here is playing games and trying to win points. You actually care about solving problems." Princess Hana moved closer to him. "In my entire life, I've never met anyone so genuine." Li Te felt his heart skip a beat. He was falling for an alien princess, and that could only end badly. The first sign of trouble came during lunch. Li Te was showing Princess Hana how to use chopsticks when his communicator buzzed with an emergency alert. 3 unregistered ships had docked at the station. "That's strange," Princess Hana said, reading the message over his shoulder. "Those aren't diplomatic vessels." Before Li Te could respond, the lights in the cafeteria flickered and went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in. Red light. People started murmuring nervously. Princess Hana grabbed Li Te's arm. "We need to leave now." "Why? What's happening?" "The wedding is in 2 weeks. General Wu's enemies want me dead before then. They're making their move." They hurried toward the exit, but Princess Hana suddenly pulled Li Te behind a food counter. 3 figures in dark clothing walked past, carrying weapons that definitely weren't standard security gear. "How do we get out of here?" Princess Hana whispered. Li Te thought quickly. He knew this station better than anyone. "Follow me." He led her to a maintenance panel behind the kitchen. Using his master key, he opened it to reveal a narrow service tunnel. "These connect to every part of the station. I use them to move equipment around." They crawled through the tight space, Princess Hana's royal robes getting dirty for the first time in her life. Li Te knew exactly where they were going, his small supply room in the lower levels. "This is crazy," Princess Hana said as they emerged from the tunnel. "I'm a princess crawling through air vents like a thief. Right now you're just someone trying to stay alive," Li Te replied, checking his security monitor. "And I'm going to make sure that happens." The small room was cramped with cleaning supplies and spare parts. They sat on boxes of toilet paper while Li Te studied the station's layout on his tablet. "There are 6 of them," he said, watching. "The security feeds. They're checking every room systematically, professional assassins." Princess Hana looked scared for the first time since he'd known her. "In my world, I always had guards to protect me. Here, it's just you and me." "I won't let anything happen to you," Li Te said firmly. "I promise." She looked at him with something that might have been love. "Why? You could just hide until they leave. This isn't your fight." "Yes, it is. You're my friend. That makes it my fight." They spent the next 3 hours moving through the maintenance system like mice in the walls. Li Te knew every pipe, every junction, every hidden passage. When the assassins got close, he led Princess Hana through routes they'd never think to check. During one close call, they huddled together in a storage compartment barely big enough for 2 people. The assassins searched the area just meters away, their footsteps echoing in the corridor. Princess Hana was pressed against Li Te's chest, her breathing quick and shallow. He could smell her perfume and feel her heart beating fast. In that moment, he realized he would do anything to protect her. "Li Te," she whispered so quietly, he almost couldn't hear. "If we don't make it out of this—" "We will," he said confidently. "I have a plan." When the footsteps faded, Li Te led her to the main power control room. "I'm going to shut down all non-essential systems. It'll force them to retreat to their ships." "Won't that get you in trouble?" Li Te smiled as he started flipping switches. "Probably, but keeping you safe is worth losing my job." As darkness fell over most of the station, Princess Hana realized something important. This simple janitor cared more about her well-being than any noble or politician ever had. The power shutdown worked, but only temporarily. Within an hour, the assassins had backup generators running, and they were hunting again. Li Te and Princess Hana found themselves trapped in his smallest supply closet, surrounded by mops and cleaning chemicals. They could hear footsteps in the hallway outside. The assassins were checking every room, getting closer each minute. Princess Hana sat on a bucket, her expensive robes torn and dirty. Li Te crouched by the door, listening carefully. "They're 2 rooms away," he whispered. "We need to stay completely quiet." Princess Hana nodded, but her hands were shaking. The reality of their situation was hitting her hard. In a few minutes, those killers might find them, and Li Te, who had nothing to do with royal politics, could die because of her. The footsteps stopped right outside their door. Li Te held his breath. The handle turned slowly. Then a voice called from down the hallway, "Over here, I found something!" The footsteps moved away. Li Te exhaled slowly, but they weren't safe yet. "Li Te," Princess Hana whispered, tears in her eyes. "I need to tell you something before it's too late." "We're going to be fine," he said softly. "I won't let them hurt you. That's just it. You keep risking your life for me, and I don't deserve it." She wiped her eyes with her dirty sleeve. "I'm in love with you." Li Te stared at her in the dim light from his flashlight. "What?" "I love you. Not because you saved my life, not because you're my protector. I love you because you're kind and honest and brave. You make me want to be a better person." Li Te felt his world spinning. "Princess, you can't. I'm just a janitor. You're royalty." "That's exactly why this could work." Princess Hana grabbed his hands. "In Keth law, any woman can choose to marry the man who saved her life. It overrides all other arrangements, even royal engagements." "You want to marry me?" Li Te's voice cracked with emotion. "I'm begging you to marry me. Please." Tears ran down her face. "I can't marry General Wu. He's cruel and violent. He'll use me to start wars and hurt innocent people." Li Te's mind raced. "But I'm nobody. I don't know how to be a prince or whatever. I don't know your customs or politics. You know the most important thing, how to be good. That's all I need." The footsteps were coming back. They had maybe 2 minutes before the assassins reached their hiding spot. "There's something else," Princess Hana said urgently. "If I marry General Wu, it will unite the war factions. They'll attack the peaceful kingdoms. Millions will die, but if I marry you, a human, it sends a different message. It shows my people that we should work with other species, not conquer them." Li Te felt the weight of her words. "You're saying our marriage could prevent a war?" "Yes. The progressive nobles will support us. They want peace and cooperation. But I can't do it without you." The door handle started to turn again. This time no one called the assassins away. Li Te made the biggest decision of his life. "Yes," he whispered. "I'll marry you." Princess Hana's face lit up with hope and joy. "Really?" "Really. But first, we need to survive the next 5 minutes." The door opened just as Li Te switched off his flashlight. In the darkness, they heard confused voices. The assassins couldn't see them yet, but they would soon. Princess Hana squeezed Li Te's hand. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. A janitor and a princess. Against the galaxy. Li Te couldn't sleep. It had been 3 days since they escaped the assassins, and Princess Hana's proposal kept spinning in his head. He sat in his small apartment, staring at a cup of cold coffee. Marriage to an alien princess. Him, a guy who struggled to pay rent each month. Princess Hana had been staying in the diplomatic quarters under heavy security, but she visited him every evening. Tonight she sat across from him at his tiny kitchen table, wearing simple human clothes she'd borrowed. "You're having second thoughts," she said quietly. Li Te rubbed his face with his hands. "I keep thinking about what this really means. You're asking me to become part of your government, to help rule an entire empire. I don't know anything about that stuff." "You know more than you think," Princess Hana said. "Remember how you solved those trade disputes. You have good instincts about people and fairness." That was just common sense. Running a space empire is different. Princess Hana reached across the table and took his hands. Let me explain what's really happening with my people. Maybe it will help you understand why this matters so much. She pulled out a small device that projected a hologram of the Keith Empire. Li Te saw dozens of planets connected by trade routes. For centuries, my people have been split into two groups, she began. The traditionalists believe we should conquer other species and take their resources. They think we're superior to everyone else. The hologram showed red areas where conflicts were happening. General Wu leads the traditionalists. If I marry him, it gives them the power they need to start major wars. They'll attack peaceful worlds and enslave the survivors. Li Te studied the projection. What about the other group? The progressives believe we should work with other species as equals, trade instead of conquest, peace instead of war. The hologram showed green areas where cooperation was working, but they're smaller and weaker. They need something dramatic to rally behind. Like a human prince, Li Te said, understanding dawning on him. Exactly. If I marry you, it proves that progressives are right, that other species have value, that love and respect matter more than power and fear. Li Te walked to his small window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there were billions of people whose lives might depend on his decision. I'm scared, he admitted. What if I mess everything up? What if I make the wrong choices and people get hurt? Princess Hana joined him at the window. Do you think I'm not scared? I've been trained for this my whole life, and I'm terrified of making mistakes. But you're smart and educated. I'm just a guy who cleans floors. You're a guy who saved my life without thinking about rewards, who solved diplomatic problems that experts couldn't handle, who risked everything to protect someone he barely knew. Princess Hana turned to face him. That's not just anything, that's heroic. Li Te thought about his mother's words. She always said that character mattered more than circumstances. That doing right was more important than doing easy. If I say yes, what happens next? We'll have a traditional Keth wedding ceremony here on the station. Representatives from both factions will attend. The whole galaxy will be watching. And then we go to my homeworld and start building a better future. Together. Li Te was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. My mum used to say that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing what's right even when you are afraid. Princess Hana smiled hopefully. I'm terrified, Li Te continued. But if our marriage can prevent wars and save lives, then I have to try, even if I'm not ready. You are ready, Princess Hana said, kissing his cheek. You just don't know it yet. The wedding preparations took over the entire diplomatic wing. Princess Hana's advisors arrived from the Keth homeworld, bringing traditional decorations and ceremonial items. Li Te watched in amazement as his simple workplace transformed into something from a fairy tale. This is incredible, he said, staring at the crystal formations that now covered the ceremony hall. It looks like the inside of a jewel box. Princess? Hana smiled nervously as servants fitted her wedding dress. The gown was made from some kind of fabric that shimmered like starlight. In Keth culture, weddings are as much about politics as love. Every detail sends a message. Li Te looked down at his own outfit, a modified tuxedo with Keith ceremonial elements. What message does this send? That we're blending our cultures, that humans and Keth can be equals. She took his hand. Are you ready for this? Before Li Te could answer, alarms started blaring throughout the station. His communicator buzzed with an urgent message. 50 warships had just dropped out of hyperspace near the station. Princess Hana's face went pale. He's here. An hour later, they stood in the main conference room watching a massive screen. General Wu's face filled the display, scarred, cruel, and absolutely furious. Even through the video link, Li Te could feel the alien's overwhelming presence. Princess Hana, General Wu's voice was like grinding metal. You will come aboard my flagship immediately. This foolishness ends now. I am exercising my legal right under Keth law, Princess Hana replied firmly. I choose Li Te as my husband. General Wu's laugh was terrifying. That weakling. He's not even worthy to clean my boots, much less marry royalty. Li Te felt his stomach drop. Up close, General Wu looked like he could tear a person in half with his bare hands. His arms were covered in battle scars, and his teeth were filed to sharp points. If you insist on this path, General Wu continued. Then let's settle it properly. I invoke the right of challenge, combat to determine who is worthy of your hand. Princess Hana stepped forward. That's an ancient law. It hasn't been used in centuries, but it still stands. Your human must face me in single combat. When I defeat him, you will marry me as originally planned. The transmission ended, leaving the room in stunned silence. Li Te felt like he might throw up. I can't fight him, Li Te said quietly. Look at me, then look at him. He'll kill me in 30 seconds. Princess Hana's advisors whispered urgently among themselves. Finally, the eldest spoke up. The challenge. Here's legal. If you refuse, Princess Hana loses her right to choose. She must marry General Wu. But if I accept and lose, she still has to marry him. Plus, I'll be dead. Yes, the advisor said grimly. Those are the terms. Princess Hana grabbed Li Te's hands. You don't have to do this. We can find another way. Li Te looked into her eyes and saw the fear there. Not fear for herself, but fear for him. This woman who could have had any powerful warrior in the galaxy had chosen him. A simple janitor who was definitely about to die fighting an alien monster. When is the combat? He asked. Tomorrow at dawn, the advisor replied. According to tradition, it will be broadcast across the Empire. Millions will watch. Li Te nodded slowly. He had less than 12 hours to figure out how to survive a fight with a professional killer who outweighed him by 50 pounds and had been training for war his entire life. I need to make some preparations, Li Te said, and I need to call my mum. If I'm going to die tomorrow, she should know I love her. Princess Hana started crying, but Li Te felt strangely calm. Sometimes being a hero meant accepting impossible odds. The combat arena was set up in the station's main cargo bay. Thousands of Keth citizens watched from the viewing galleries, while millions more watched the live broadcast across the Empire. Li Te had never felt so many eyes on him at once. He wore the ceremonial armor Princess Hana's people had given him, but underneath it was his old janitor uniform. It felt right somehow, staying true to who he was even in this moment. General. Wu entered from the opposite side and the crowd gasped. He was even more intimidating in person, standing nearly 7 feet tall with muscles like steel cables. His armor was covered in trophies from defeated enemies. Look at this joke, General Wu announced loudly. The princess chooses a cleaning boy over a warrior. This is what happens when we show weakness to inferior species. Li Te ignored the insults and studied his opponent. General Wu moved like a predator, confident, aggressive, used to winning through pure force. But Li Te had learned something important during his years as a janitor. Every problem had a solution if you looked at it the right way. The combat rules were simple. Any weapon could be used, but both fighters had to choose from the same selection. Li Te looked at the rack of traditional Keth weapons, swords, spears, energy blasters, all things General Wu had trained with his entire life. I choose maintenance. Tools, Li Te said suddenly. The crowd murmured in confusion. General Wu laughed. What? The rules say we both pick from the same selection. I want maintenance tools instead of weapons. The referee looked puzzled but nodded. If both fighters agree, General Wu shrugged. Fine, I'll beat you with a mop if that's what you want. They wheeled in Li Te's cleaning cart and a duplicate for General Wu. Now they both had access to the same weapons, mops, brooms, spray bottles and cleaning chemicals. General Wu grabbed a heavy floor buffer, swinging it like a club. This ends now, human. He charged forward with incredible speed. Li Te barely rolled aside as the buffer smashed into the floor where he'd been standing. The impact left a crater in the metal. Li Te grabbed his spray bottle filled with industrial degreaser. As General Wu charged again, Li Te sprayed the floor in front of him. The alien's feet slipped on the slick surface and he crashed into the wall. Tricks won't save you, General Wu roared, getting back up. But Li Te was just getting started. He had spent 3 years learning exactly how these tools worked. While General Wu saw cleaning supplies, Li Te saw solutions to problems. He mixed ammonia-based cleaner with vinegar in a bucket, creating a smoke cloud that made General Wu cough and stumble. Then he used his mop to tangle the bigger alien's legs, sending him sprawling again. Fight like a warrior, General Wu demanded. I'm fighting like a human, Li Te replied. The crowd was silent now, watching in amazement as the small human outmaneuvered the mighty general using nothing but cleverness and determination. General Wu grew more frustrated with each failed attack. His movements became wilder, less controlled. Li Te stayed calm, using his knowledge of the tools and his opponent's anger against him. Finally, Li Te saw his opening. He sprayed lubricant on a long-handled squeegee and used it like a pole vault, launching himself over General Wu's head. As he landed behind the confused alien, he wrapped an extension cord around General Wu's ankles and pulled. The general went down hard, his head hitting the floor with a loud crack. He tried to get up but couldn't maintain his balance. "Yield," Li Te said quietly. "You're beaten." General Wu looked up at him with shock and grudging respect. "How?" "Because I never tried to be stronger than you. I just tried to be smarter." The arena erupted in cheers. The Keth people had witnessed something they'd never seen before, true strength that came from wisdom, not violence. The wedding ceremony began 2 hours after Li Te's victory. Princess Hana walked down the aisle wearing her shimmering gown, but all eyes were on Li Te. He stood at the altar in his ceremonial armor, still slightly bruised from the fight, with his janitor's name tag proudly displayed on his chest. Keth High Priest performed the ancient rituals, speaking words that had joined royal couples for thousands of years. But when it came time for the vows, Li Te and Princess Hana spoke from their hearts in simple language everyone could understand. "I promise to serve our people with honesty and hard work," Li Te said. "I may not have royal blood, but I have willing hands and a loyal heart." Princess Hana smiled through happy tears. "I promise to rule with wisdom and kindness, learning from the man who showed me that true nobility comes from how we treat others, not from the titles we're born with." When they kissed, the crowd erupted in cheers that could be heard across the station. Even General Wu, now nursing his wounded pride in the medical bay, nodded with grudging respect. 6 months later, Li Te stood in the crystal gardens of the Keth Royal Palace wearing his official court robes, but underneath he still wore his comfortable work clothes. Old habits died hard. "Your Majesty," his assistant approached nervously. "The trade ministers are here for their meeting." "Tell them I'll be right there," Li Te said, finishing his inspection of the garden maintenance. "And remind them to call me Li Te. The Majesty stuff still feels weird." As Prince Consort of the Keth Empire, Li Te had officially become one of the most powerful people in the galaxy. But he spent his mornings doing what he'd always done, making sure everything was clean and running smoothly. The palace staff had been confused at first when the new prince showed up with a mop and bucket. Now they understood that this was just how he worked. He couldn't make good decisions about the empire if he didn't understand how it really functioned from the ground up. "The irrigation system in Sector 7 needs new filters," Li Te told the head gardener. "I'll approve the budget request this afternoon." Princess Hana, now Empress Hana, found him in the communications center, where he was personally checking the equipment that connected their world to the rest of the empire. "The progressive faction is gaining support every day," she reported happily. 12 more worlds have requested peaceful trade agreements instead of military occupation." Li Te smiled as he tightened a loose connection. "Good. How did the education reform vote go?" "Passed unanimously. Free schools for all species in our territory, just like you suggested." Their marriage had indeed changed everything. The Keth Empire was transforming from a conquering force into a cooperative alliance. Other species no longer feared them, but sought them out as partners. "I have a surprise for you," Empress Hana said, leading him to the throne room. Inside waited Kimbo, Li Te's old supervisor, looking completely overwhelmed by the massive crystal palace. "Kimbo!" Li Te ran over and hugged him. "What are you doing here?" "Your wife, Her Majesty, invited me to see how you're doing." Bo looked around in amazement. "Li Te, you're running an entire empire." "Same job as always," Li Te laughed. "Just a bigger building to keep clean." That evening, Li Te and Empress Hana sat on their balcony, looking out at the city lights. Ships from dozens of worlds came and went peacefully, bringing trade and friendship instead of war and conquest. "Do you ever regret it?" Empress Hana asked quietly. "Giving up your simple life?" Li Te thought about it seriously. Sometimes I miss the quiet nights on the station, but then I think about all the people living better lives because of what we're building together. How can I regret that? Empress Hana took his hand. The people call you the custodian emperor. Did you know that? I like it, Li Te said. It's honest work. In the distance, a transport ship from Earth was arriving with the first group of human exchange students. The galaxy was becoming a smaller, friendlier place, one clean room at a time.